Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Paranormal Connections radio show. I am so happy to be back. I know it's been a little over a month that I have not been doing the live shows, but so much has been going on. So much has been in the work behind the scenes. So, to start off, I just want to let everybody know 1 hour ago, the website launched. We've been waiting a long time to get this up and running. We have run into a few glitches, but I guess with all websites, that's the way it happens. So you can go to Paranormal Connect, well, www.paranormalconnectionsradioshow.com. The site went live an hour ago. Go on over there, check it out. Starting next week, you will be able to watch the shows live directly from the website. You won't have to go to Facebook. You won't have to go to YouTube. You won't have to go to any other location other than the website. You'll be able to see it live. You'll be able to chat right there, the whole 9 yards. So it's going to be amazing. We were hoping that that was going to happen tonight, but we started having some software glitches at the last minute with the audio. So we just decided to go back to, for this week, go back to the BeLive.tv platform and do our interviews this way for this week. And then we will be launching, obviously, the live one from the website next week, starting on Monday. The great thing about that as well is a lot of people have been asking for me to bring back the ability for people to be able to call in with an actual call-in number. So we will have that. I've been listening. So we'll have a call-in number that you can call in if you just want to call in from your cell phone. You don't want to be on video. You just want to ask a question. You'll be able to do that. You will also be able to call in via Skype. So if you have a Skype account, you will be able to call in. It's through a Skype number, so you'll be able to call directly through that if you've got a Skype app. You will also, if you want to add the show, you can add, search for Paranormal Connections Radio Show, send me a request, and then you can actually video call if you'd like to call in and comment or ask the question, guest on video, be part of the live show. So much is going on. We are going to be having some amazing, starting next month, some amazing giveaways. People are going to have the opportunity to join me at some of the biggest and most amazing events and investigations this year all over the U.S. So you'll have the opportunity to not only join me at the conferences or events, but you'll be able to investigate, and you'll be a special guest co-host for the show for that event. So we've got that. We've got merchandise that we're going to be selling. Our merchandise store will be open soon. There is an event page showing all of the different places that I will be doing live events. Again, the merchandise, you'll be able to get just about everything you could possibly think of. Not only branded merchandise, but there will also be some just paranormal related graphics, things like that. So that will be custom made. So again, we'll also might even be offering some custom shirts. So if you have a team and you see some of the graphics that we have and you'd like to have it say something specifically or your group name, we might be able to do something like that as well. So a lot of great things coming up. At the end of the show, I will be giving you a list of some of the things that are coming up, some of the events. This year is going to be a crazy busy year. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on just 1 second. This is just times like this that you need water. I don't know what the heck is wrong. So at the end of the show, I will be giving everybody a update of the locations and events that I'll be doing over the next few months. Again, this year is going to be crazy busy. So there's going to be so many opportunities and things going on. I'm partnering up with a lot of groups and investigators from around the country, and we're going to be doing some really awesome things as well. So stay tuned to the website. Make sure also to get out there and share not only the website, but if you're on YouTube, go to the show page. All of that information is on the uh, not only the Facebook page, but also be on the website. So go like and subscribe, and make sure that share, because again, we're trying to get this information out, get all of the listeners that don't know that we are moving to our own platform a chance to know, and also for some new listeners who didn't know about the show will now know, and we can't do that without your help. So again, please share the links for the website as well as the YouTube page. All right, with that being said, I want to welcome my first guest for the relaunch. I am super, super excited to have her. And a lot of people have been asking me for a long time. Now, many people know that I have, not only am I a psychic medium and I've had my ability since I was a young child, but now as a adult, over the last 15 years, I have been actually mentoring children and teens, as well as their parents, on how to deal with a child with psychic abilities. And so a lot of people have been, asking. I've already told my story many, many times, and people love to hear these personal stories, and this is no different. So tonight, I am joined from the UK, and I have to say, I have to thank my guest because it's 2 a.m. out there, and she has school tomorrow, and she got up just so she could do the show. So I definitely appreciate it. So tonight I am joined by Claire Waters. She's the author of Raising Faith, and it's actually a true story of raising a child psychic medium, and kind of the journey for her being a mother, having psychic children, as well as her own psychic abilities while dealing with all of this. Were kind of opened up. And so not only is she trying to teach her children, but she's on her own personal journey. And I so relate to that. So thank you so much, Claire, for joining us tonight. I think this is going to be a great show, and definitely an in-demand topic for sure.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks for having me, Christina. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And you actually just debuted the book, Raising Faith. It just came out, I believe it was March 31st. Am I correct?
Yes, that's right. In the UK, and then I think in the US it was a day later. But yeah, it
Yes,
just come out.
and Gavin Lee Davies, and many people know Gavin. He came on my show to talk about his book, Go Sex, and it was one of his first video interviews that he did, and he was very, very, I guess, anxious, and was, worried about, how it was going to be, because it was, and all of that, but we did great, and it was actually one of the top videos for interviews for a very long time. And so now, as he's just blown up, and he's all over the place. And here we go. He messaged me and said, "Hey, I've got somebody that I think would be great for the show," and he gave me a little rundown, and I mean, it couldn't have been any more perfect than it was, because again, this has been a topic that people have been, asking me to do. So I'm super excited to have you on the show. Now, obviously, Raising Faith, it kind of, the book title itself says a lot, but for people who maybe don't know you, why don't you give a little bit of a background?
Sure. Well, when my children were 4 and 2 years old, I knew nothing at all about spiritual matters. I'd never seen a psychic medium. I lived a regular life here in the UK, and I read a book, and the book was about past life regression. And
Mm.
I contacted the hypnotherapist at the clinic where I was the resident homeopath, and asked him if he did past life regression, and had a lovely conversation with him. And I had so many questions for him about it that he actually put me in touch with a psychic medium, who then told me that my children were also psychic mediums. So from literally nothing to something, I was presented with this information about my children, and I just didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what it meant. I had no idea what they were experiencing. And so, really, it opened a door for me to learn something completely new, to face some fears of my own, because obviously I'd always grown up being quite frightened of ghosts and spiritual matters. And yeah, it just completely turned my world upside down, really. And once I'd found out about the children, I didn't really feel I could go back to pretending it wasn't real and sweeping it under the carpet. So yeah, that's kind of where the journey began. And now the children are much older. They're 14 and 12 now. So we've been doing this for
Oh,
10 years.
wow.
Yeah, so the journey's been interesting. And so, yeah, we wrote Raising Faith kind of to document some of the things that happened for us and to help other families, because I figured there's plenty more people out there going through the same thing. And I felt, being a practitioner, someone, confident and comfortable talking to people regularly every day, that I would be able to talk about things in a way that maybe would help others who perhaps didn't have that ability or didn't have that confidence, or weren't involved in spiritual matters, but as I wasn't. I appreciate a lot of children are born to psychic medium or gifted parents, but I wasn't aware of those abilities in myself. So for me, it was quite a shock.
Yeah, 100%. And I love, the fact about, helping others because it is a journey, and even though we're talking a big difference, so we're talking, say, 10 years, this journey for you. Uh, Mine started, very, very young as well, like your children. And there was no information,
Yeah.
about this. And so really it was kind of a trial and error thing. I had no idea what I was experiencing, what it was. The only thing that I knew about psychics were that, they were scam artists or supposedly scam artists and told everybody that, they had demon curses and things like that. And you pay them all your money and they'll fix it for you.
Yeah.
So that was definitely not something, that I wanted. And like you, over the journey, I mean, and it was a rocky journey for sure, because there just wasn't very much information back then, opposed to now. There's a lot of information, but it's almost like there's an overload of information and so many differing opinions. So you really do kind of just have to go through it and figure out where you fit and what works for you and your children. Um, but again, I think that when you get so far in that you're kind of like, okay, I kind of know. I might not ever be an expert, but nor do I want to be, but I have some information that might be valuable of helping other parents that are going through the situation. And that's what I love, because as I said, I've been mentoring children and teenage child psychics, or children that had some version of psychic abilities, and I work with them. But I found I also, needed to kind of work with the parents as well, because
Yes.
now it kind of changes everything for you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
you can't just, shoo away when your child says, oh, something's scaring me at night, or oh, I saw something. And you can no longer say, oh, it's the imaginary friend, and it'll go away. You have to approach things completely differently. So I think that it's very important what you're doing. And this book, I feel, will be a great tool, of a documented journey of being that parent. And again, as well, now that you're kind of trying to help your children out with their journey, here come the activation of your own abilities. And
Yeah.
now you kind of have to figure that out for yourself, which in one way is kind of good because you're kind of going through it together. But you want to be that leader. You're the parent. You want to be able to tell your kids, what's going on with them and how we can fix it, or what we can do. And if you're just kind of trying to figure it out for yourself as well, it's like, okay, well, how much do I really know to be able to be teaching them? So, great job for sticking it out and, riding this wave and not being like so many other parents who don't know how to answer these questions, that they just kind of push it to the side, and then their children, end up suffering alone through
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
don't talk about it, or end up being kind of traumatized. So good job.
Yeah. No, thanks. It's you know, the journey's been interesting. I've had to learn about spiritual matters from the very beginning. I've had to understand what is the spirit world and who are these people visiting my children, and what do they want with them, and why are they in their bedroom at night time when I tuck them into bed. It was, as a parent, you're always out on the lookout, aren't you, for just keeping them safe and keeping them happy and well. And then you have this other angle to deal with. And when you know nothing, you have to learn pretty
Right,
quick.
right,
so,
right.
so yeah, so, all of that we've been through. And I just think it would really help to shortcut some of the worry and some of the understanding. By that was the idea really behind Raising Faith, was, I've documented what we experienced and what we've been through, and who those visitors are and what they do want, and how they present themselves. And I do think there's a lot out there that looks scary, that sounds scary, and yes, there's a dark side, but I'm also keen to bring the light, and for people to
Yes,
focus on the positive and not worry so much about the negative, and dwell on that, because I do think the more you focus on, you draw and you attract as well. So just,
100%.
it's such a beautiful blessing when you can embrace it in that way, when you can appreciate it, rather than being frightened of it. So yeah, just really trying to help people understand it. And we're learning all the time. Even now, we're learning
Yeah,
every week. There's something new. So it evolves. But yeah, no, it's just, and I also think just sharing our stories with each other. I would love to hear from other families going through the same thing. I think, we can comfort and embrace each other and just say, wow, that's incredible. And, that's really different. And yeah, I
well,
think it brings comfort just to share.
100%. I mean, look at women who are first time mothers, right?
Mm,
And they're having to deal with teething, or, constipation or colic, or, even to the point where potty training and different things. So, you're the first time mom, you have no idea.
yeah,
So, having other people that have gone through that maybe can give you some advice, I think is great. It's just so crazy that for like first time moms, all these kinds of groups are very popular, but groups for children with abilities, and a support group for them. One of the biggest things for me with the children was that I had children that their parents would come to me, and they were all over the country, all over the world, in fact.
yeah,
And so, of course, it wasn't like they went to school together and it was a small group and they could kind of get their own bond. So I would do the individual sessions, but also once a month we did a group session. And so I would bring
yeah,
all these kids from around the world. And so the great thing about the internet was then they could make their own little, support groups, and they could talk to each other and have somebody talk to. And then the parents of these kids, same thing. So
yeah,
I think it's very important. I think that it's something that people should not try to kind of steer away from. I think that they need to embrace it and help their children, because the children are actually much happier when they understand what's going on with them. And as you said, I mean, yes, there is a dark side, but it can be a dark side for people who have absolutely no abilities.
right. Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
so
Yeah,
I think that being able to teach the children, the positive and the negative side of it, because it balances out and everything happens for a reason. So I think by knowing both of those, trying to avoid putting yourself in situations where you would be more open, to an attachment than other people who don't, their abilities aren't activated, um, and how to protect themselves. And I
yeah,
think that if you have those basic, knowledge, as you said, I always tell people, you have people are afraid of what they don't understand.
yeah,
Once they understand that, okay, yeah, there is something scary. It's like driving a car. Yes, you got the control over this big gigantic car that could do a whole lot of damage, but are you going to be focused and overly, scared to get in the car every day because you think you might hit somebody and kill somebody. No, you're going to learn how to drive, carefully, and don't put yourself in situations like speeding or, drunk driving or things like that. So, I mean, again, it's just
Yeah.
similar situations. Just you just have to be educated, and then it removes a lot of that fear and the
Yeah.
danger. Now, what was, say, some of the first experiences that you both of your children had that they came to you about that started to make you think like, this is different?
Well, the really weird thing is, they weren't those children that talked about the lady in the corner of the room. They
Okay.
just never did that, which is why I had such a difficult time understanding how they could possibly be psychic mediums. For me, it was like, well, surely I'd know. Surely there would be something they'd said. Faith has always been very wise, very grown up. Even when she was born, people said, wow, there's an old soul. She's always been quite reserved, quite confident in herself, but sort of shy in company. She'd stand back, she'd watch. And she'd never mentioned this to me, and yet I spent every day with her. And she was so little, she was 4. But she'd never said anything. And it was only, it took me a good couple of weeks to pluck up the courage to confront her and ask her about this gift once I'd been made aware of it. And she was just playing in her room with her toys and figures on the floor. And, I worried about asking her. I didn't want to confuse her, and I didn't want to put ideas into her head, and I didn't want to scare her either. So it took me a couple of weeks after finding out this information, and then I did. I approached her, and she just nodded and shrugged her shoulders, like, yeah, what's the big deal? Are there people in the room that you can see? Yes. Well, who are they? And sometimes she'd just shrug her shoulders. She would talk about great granddad, who was my granddad that had passed about 2 years earlier. She just couldn't understand why I was so interested at all. She didn't embellish it. She wasn't looking for any attention in what she was telling me. She just didn't understand why I was even asking her. It was only really when I told her that I couldn't see those people that she looked up from what she was doing and looked quite shocked. That was the one thing that you thought, oh, you didn't like that. She didn't like hearing I couldn't see them and that she was different in some way. And as time went on, it was mostly at bedtimes, I think, when she would be looking around the room and I'd see her watching something or listening, with her head sort of cocked to one side. And I'd just press her gently and say, what can you see today? And sometimes she would shrug and she didn't want to talk about it. And most of the time she would just say, there's a lady there or there's a man there. And she would sit and listen to them for a while. And then she'd relay something they wanted to say to me. And it would be spirit guides or it would be my grandparents, some of whom she'd never met in the living world anyway. It would be spirit guides of people we knew, like my mother, for example, that were passing messages for me to help. Or it would be people passing messages for me to help with patients sometimes as a homeopath. Sometimes I'd get messages coming in about homeopathic remedies that would help people as well. So it could be a mixed bag of anything, but she literally was just the conduit between spirit world and me. And, obviously they were there for her, but they would also share information with me too. Yeah, so mixed.
And so, and that was your daughter, and how old was she at the time?
She's 4 at the
Okay.
time.
Okay. And so for your son, what was his first experience?
He experiences things differently. He's an
Mm-hmm.
incredibly sensitive little boy. He's very intuitive, very empathic, and he would see them, but he wouldn't announce to me that there were people in the room. It would be someone like my granddad again, would read him a story at bedtime. He would sense they were there, but he didn't always know who they were. And that still happens to him now. Just last week, he came out of his bedroom. He's 12 now, and he said, Mum, there's something not right in my room. I'm frightened. And I said, well, okay. Let's ask Faith if she'll go in and tell us who it is, because there must be someone there. And she did. She went in and she came out and she gave me a bit of a look that went, not sure about this. This is different. And she looked at him and she said, I can see why you're frightened, Tom. She said, but it's okay. She said, you have people all around your room, literally wall to wall. He just had hundreds of people around his bedroom. And she said, I've never seen so many people in his room. You know, there's that many of them. She said, I can't actually see the individuals. I can just see a mass of people and energy. But she said, it's okay. She said, your spirit guides are moving them on now. She said, they don't mean there's any harm. You know, all of our spirit guides are really relaxed. Nobody's panicking. They're moving them on. They've just asked them to step back for now. And they're all exiting via the window. They're literally just leaving via the window, which is the way they tend to come in.
Right.
Yeah, so he has that all the time, you know, and I mean, to be fair, we've not had a room full of people like that, but there's always something he senses and he picks up on. But for him, because he can't see them, it's a bit more frightening that he's not sure who it is that's there, but he knows they're there.
Right, right. And again, it's great that you're pointing out that even though both of your children have psychic abilities, they are different. And that's
Yeah.
the one thing that I can't stress enough. I hate, and that's almost why I don't really like the whole quote unquote title of psychic, because everybody or the lay person immediately assumes that you have all of these abilities. You can see the spirit, you can talk to them, you can give a message, you can go into a trance. Like, every different person has a different variation. Some people may have similar abilities, some people may have completely opposite abilities. Sometimes I like it that way because, like, the co-founder of my group that I have, we have a research society, and our abilities are different as well. She gets pictures of, and she audibly can hear messages, but she'll get pictures of whatever the spirit was trying to show her. Where opposed to me, I visually can see them and I can ask them the question and get a response.
Yeah.
So again, some people just are sensitive just to the energy, so they can sense something's there, but they can't see it. They can't hear anything. Some people will hear the whispers and everything, don't get anything else. So again, it's just such a wide spectrum of different types of abilities that they can have. And for your son, that is true. It can be a little unnerving when you can hear what's going on. You can sense something's there, but you can't visually see it. And not that, again, people think that if you visually can see something, you're going to be able to tell if it's, somebody good or somebody bad. And that's absolutely not the case too.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that I deal with have not crossed over. So if they were a bad person in the living, if they haven't crossed over, they're still a bad person in death until they cross over and kind of shed all of that.
Yeah.
So you can get, if a person was a serial killer or very abusive, they can go and try to push you down or scratch you or do things like that, where immediately, to a lot of people, they'll think it must be something demonic, something's trying to kill them, all these different things, when again, it's not. It's just the person who is a very nasty, mean person. So it can be hard. And I think that, they, as he starts to get more in tune with, the energy, he'll be able to sense the difference, because you can also get, spirits that will try to trick you.
Yes.
They'll try to make you think that they're somebody connected to you, a family member, or somebody that just needs to give a message, when they're absolutely, that's not the case. So, and I think too, that's hard as a child to learn to decipher that. But it's no difference of how we, teach children to decipher regular people. Are they, a good person, and give boundaries. And again, we just have to kind of keep the same parental guidelines that we use for our children, but they just have to be tweaked in certain areas. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about your abilities, and when did you start becoming aware of your abilities during this journey with the kids?
I mean, shortly after I found out about the children, I started attending some development workshops and attending spiritual churches, just as a taster, really, to get an understanding of what they were experiencing. And as part of that, of those visits and attending those workshops, I was given the opportunity to use different methods to try and communicate with spirit and pass messages to other people. And I was able to do some things I wasn't expecting. On one occasion, I stood on the stage at the spiritual church. I was the first man up. They were like, "Who's going first?" I was like, "Me, definitely me." I just, I was there to learn. I wanted to learn as much as I could, as quickly as possible. And I stood on the stage, and with the help of a medium, I might add, not by myself, she was giving me energy. And I could visualize in my mind's eye, I could see a lady and I could describe her. And it was amazing because actually she looked a lot like someone in the audience. And that lady in the audience knew exactly who I was bringing through. And it was lovely. It was her mother, and it was just such an incredible thing to be able to do that. I mean, I don't think I could do it on my own now, but it gave me an understanding of, how this thing works, how psychic mediums do what they do. And thereafter, with the development workshops, I got to practice with all sorts of different things like rune stones and coloured ribbons and tarot, and just sat there cold reading. And again, I was able to give people readings using different methods. And it was just amazing to realise, wow, I have something here. And I think I'd always been intuitive as a person. I would never have called it psychic up to that point. I just had good intuition, and I knew if I liked someone or I was a bit wary of someone. And in my homeopathic practice, I think I've always tuned into patients and felt what it is that they were feeling, and been able to use that to help find them the best prescription to help them feel well again. So I've always sort of tapped into people's energy and their emotions comfortably. I just hadn't realized that it was particularly a psychic gift. And I think it is. I think it's just that sensitivity to energies that turns out, yeah, I use it there. I use it at the development workshops. So yeah, it was really when I started exploring that I realized I could do some things of my own. And then not long afterwards, really, I started to realize that the spirit were tapping on me. I have a gift of touch. So they touch me on different parts of my body to tell me they're there. And different people touch me in different places. But for me, it's a bit more of a long-winded way, because I have to go through a series of asking questions to figure out who they are if they're not someone that taps in that position regularly. So it takes me some time to figure out, okay, that part of my head is my granddad, and okay, that part's my spirit guide, and that part's this spirit guide. And so they touch me to tell me, I'm here, I'm with you. And I can use that gift really a bit like you could use a dowsing crystal. So I can get taps for yes, for no. So it just enables me to communicate with them in a different way.
Well, I have to say, I mean, and this is my theory and my opinion, is that we are all born with psychic abilities. It's
Yeah.
naturally, we're born with it. And depending on what our religious background is, how our parents interact when the subjects are brought up, and then is it supported, your family structure around, is it something that's supported and they try to support and grow those abilities, or is it something that, again, that's kind of like, it's an imaginary friend, it'll go away, blah, blah, blah. In my research over the years, I find that all of those play a big factor into it. And then by the time that they enter school, so usually by 5 or 6 years old, if there hasn't been any kind of real support and help in trying to grow these abilities, then they end up putting up a wall, a block. And one of the things that I've noticed is, especially now that on television, radio, all these different avenues, the paranormal is very, very popular.
Yeah.
And so we are starting to hear a lot of adults say, oh, wow, I got this fascination with paranormal after I watched a television show about it. And now all of a sudden I'm seeing things or hearing things. Am I going crazy? Is this all just because I've been, reading on it, or I've been watching these shows? Am I brainwashing myself to think that I'm seeing things? And, absolutely not. It's just now that the veil is starting to get thinner and it is not as taboo. Now when a person has an experience, they're a little bit more open to say, okay, maybe there is something to this. A lot of times people will say, I've never had a, paranormal experience in my life, so I can't be psychic. And to that, I usually will respond and I'll say, have you ever walked into a room of people or met somebody that you've never met in your life, and immediately you get a feeling that, uh-oh, this doesn't feel right? And most of them will say, well, yeah, of course. And I said, okay, well, what do you classify that is? And they said, oh, well, that's a gut instinct.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, gut instinct, psychic abilities, I mean,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
but you have had these experiences in the past. But again, if it wasn't something that was when you go to your parents and they sit you down and they openly listen to what you're saying, try to give you some type of support or answer to what they think may be going on, just that will change a lot of how the children sees things. Again, if it's something that's just kind of like, oh yeah, stop talking about this, stop making this stuff up, eventually a child is going to stop talking about it. So
There's so many adults I've met who are now involved in either spiritual circles or they're healers of some type, and so many of them remember having psychic abilities as a child, and they were suppressed because their parents just didn't believe them. And it's taken quite a bit of work to open the door again and to get that communication back up again.
100%.
Um, yeah, there's so many I've met that say, "Gosh, I remember this, but I was raised Catholic, and it was very strict, and it was, considered not appropriate or evil or whatever, the religion was suggesting." Um, yeah, or told it was my imagination, or not to talk about that, or so many adults I've heard have said this. That yeah, it's a shame, I think, but it is what it is, and they've come back to it. Years later, they've been drawn back to it. They've been led that way, so they're I guess if they're meant to use their abilities, then they're definitely being guided back to use their abilities again as an adult. When they've had some life experience and they've made their own decisions on what they want to do. Yeah.
absolutely. I want to say thank you to the people who are joining tonight. We're getting a lot of comments. Marie says, thank you for having a show about this subject regarding children with abilities. Absolutely. Kimmy says, great subject. Glad I'm able to log in tonight. Marie says, thank you for sharing your story, Claire.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Rosa says, what is the best way to get rid of spirits? I have been, as well as my daughters, seeing black entities in our apartment. They don't hurt us, but they scare the crap out of us. Now, do you have a response for her? And then I definitely as well will give some feedback.
I guess my question is: are they scaring you because you don't know what they are, or are they doing things that are scary to you, or is it just the fact that there's someone there, there's a presence, and you don't know who it is? Because first of all, you could try asking them to step back, explaining that they're frightening you, and to please step back. Um, there are also ways that you can ask them, or you can get them help to move on if they're stuck spirits, but it does depend on who they are and what they're there for. They may be people there to help you. They may be guides. They may be angels. They may be your loved ones, or they may be spirits that are actually stuck and do need some help, and they're contacting you because they recognize you have abilities and that they can see your light, and they realize that you may well be the quickest way for them to get help and to get moved on. So it's really a question of figuring out what they're there for.
Absolutely. And actually, Rose has been a long time listener and a friend on Facebook as well. And I will tell you that her and her daughters are gifted. And so, Rosa, I will tell you, first of all, if this was something bad, you would have no question in your mind that it was something bad and out to hurt you. You wouldn't be, saying, well, I'm not sure, how to get rid of them. You might not need to, quote unquote, get rid of them. Again, might need help. And what I have found out is that a lot of times people who are kind of, their abilities are starting to get stronger. They will see, instead of seen an apparition, everybody thinks that when they're going to see a spirit that it's going to look just like you and me, and that's how they're going to be able to tell. Again, not everybody can visually see spirits like that. Sometimes as they're starting to progress with their abilities, instead of going from not seeing anything to starting to see something, you might see a mist, you might see a silhouette of a person, you might see a dark shadow. I have done shows on this before, and just because you see a dark shadow in your home or in your business does not mean it's anything bad. This comes from, again, us being programmed from television and movies that anything dark is automatically going to be bad and out to hurt you. So I do feel that, whatever it is, I've told you guys for a long time that having abilities, spirits are going to be drawn to you. And so they will follow you. And if after a while, if they don't get the reaction or the help they need, a lot of times they'll move on and look for somebody else to help. It just kind of, that's the way it is. There are ways to actually kind of grid off your house itself so that spirits don't follow you into the home, so that you kind of can have a sanctuary or a spot where you're not constantly bothered. There's ways to do that, and I can, if you message me, I can help you with that. But I just want to put you at ease. You're feeling scared because of the fact that you don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. And I can assure you, 100% at this point, it is nothing bad that's going to hurt you. And if it was, again, we would be having a much different conversation right now. You would be explaining all the horrible things that have happened to you, and you would be afraid of the whole situation. So again, just as Claire said, tell them to step back. Tell them that it's scaring you, that you don't understand, and that you wish that you could help them, but you can't. And for the most part, spirits are just wanting some help. They don't know how strong your abilities are and what you can or cannot see or do. So, that's kind of what you have to look at when you're doing this. But I wouldn't be worried or afraid of the situation. Christopher says, hey, Christina, very true. If a parent keeps programming a child, they will shut down. And he says the church is the biggest brainwasher over the centuries.
Something else I'd just like to add as well. Was it Rose that has the gift of
Rosa, yes.
Yeah. So I've just been doing some interviews with different healers who are also psychic mediums, and a couple that I interviewed last week. Their job is actually to clear stuck spirits from both attachments on people and houses. And I am going to be loading these videos onto my website soon. So that might be something that's really helpful for her, because if she has the confidence to, it will give her the tools to help move those spirits on if she wants to, or she can get help from these people who can do this remotely for her. Lovely, gentle, kind people. They're really lovely. So just keep an eye on the website, because I do think that's a lot of the time, that's the first thing people worry about is spirits they don't know, or spirits they don't want, or what if I have a visitor and I don't know how to get rid of them? This will hopefully reassure you, and what these guys say is that 9 times out of 10, it's not a bad spirit. It's not someone there to hurt you. It's just someone that's usually stuck that needs your help. And you can help them if you have the confidence to, or you can get someone in to help you with that, but not to be frightened of them. And yeah, as Christina said, to talk to them and explain what you're experiencing, and ask them to step back. We've had our own visitations, very similar, and again, we were lucky that when we asked them to step back, they did. So hopefully that might help anyway.
And again, if they won't do it, then there are people, and that's, again, you just need to find the right reputable people that know other reputable people that can actually help. And so this is definitely, I just put up Claire's website, so make sure to check that out as well. Also, if you send them to me, Claire, I'll be happy to put them on our website as well to get that information out there.
It might take me a week or so, but it will be up there very soon. So just keep an eye on that. And it will be on the Facebook page as well. I'll be telling everyone, because I do think that's one of the things, isn't it? Is fear is the thing that stops so many people from being comfortable with these gifts.
Absolutely.
And visitations is one of those things you just think, crumbs, what do I do when that happens to me? So hopefully that video will be of help to people.
Right. And Rosa says, don't know why they are there. She says that they have, it's a dark figure, no face, just black. And again, I think that I've explained that what's going on. Um, Again, if you've asked them to step back and they won't, then what you can do is, keep an eye on Claire's website, uh, utilize that information, and she could probably help if you need the name of the group that can help if you do need, help that way. And again, then after you get your house cleared, then basically what you want to do is then contact me. I can give you some very simple things that can be done to help protect your home. And again, in that way, you don't have to worry about this. And why is it happening? Because you guys have abilities. So again, it's like a mosquito being attracted to, the bug lights. All they see is a very strong light. And from my conversations with the other side, the spirit world, what they say is that they base it on how bright your light is. So the stronger your light, they know that your abilities are strong. But again, that does not tell them what type of abilities you have. So they are going to be attracted, to you to try to get help. If you can't see them, you can't hear them, you only can, sense that they're around, and you're not going to be able to help them yourself. A lot of times, again, they'll be very persistent and they will stick around and they'll try everything they can do to get your attention. But again, if you can't help them in the long run, then a lot of times they will end up moving along and they will try to go find help elsewhere. But again, with having abilities, no matter where you go, I mean, there are spirits everywhere. I don't know why people always think that, the spirits always have to be in a scary old Victorian, building. Spirits are everywhere. And if you could have some goggles like they used to in that movie, was it 16 Ghosts or something like that? I can't remember. But you had the goggles and they put the goggles on. And when you put the goggles on, you could see all the different spirits and what they look like and all these different entities. And when you took them off, you didn't see anything. So you never knew what was coming. And it was it's like that. If you had goggles, you'd be shocked at the amount of spirits that are around us all the time, at the pharmacy, at the doctor's office, at the local grocery store, all over the place. So definitely. So thanks for all the comments, guys. If you guys have questions, feel free to continue to post them in there and I will keep asking them. Let's see. Rosa says, my daughter works in a nursing home. Could it be someone who passed from the home? 100%. Again, doesn't really matter where they came from. It's just that it's a spirit who has followed one of you home. I mean, both girls and you all have ability, so it could be anyone. It doesn't supposedly have to be her, but again, it could be anywhere. Usually just want help, so I would not be afraid. Explain what's going on, and that you don't know how to help them, but you will try to find somebody who can help them. So that should help. Okay, so let me jump. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so at Halloween, we had a visitation by a lady that was incredibly scary for my daughter. This is the only time she's ever been frightened, because she's never had a scary experience at all up until this lady at Halloween. And she basically had been reading a text at school as part of the national curriculum. Okay. So it was a text that they had to read, and it was a really scary story. It was called The Lady in Black. And the lady in it, as I understand, is very diseased. And so Faith then had a lady in her room who looked just like the lady in the book. And so she said to me, there's a lady, she said, and she was confused because she couldn't understand why the lady in her room looked just like the lady in the story she was learning at school. And anyway, the closer and closer we got to Halloween, the activity from this lady increased. We weren't sure when she first mentioned this lady if she was real, because she said she looks like the lady in the book. So maybe it's just my imagination. She was really struggling to differentiate between, have I just dreamt her up or is she actually there? Anyway, she was there. And the closer we got to Halloween, the more her activity ramped up. She was opening and closing doors. she was scary in that my daughter didn't understand what she was doing and why this was happening, because this had not happened to her in this way before.
Right.
But it was really the lady trying to get attention. And about a week before Halloween, I'd left my son Tom at home, and he rang me within minutes of me leaving the house. And he said, "Mum, you've got to come and get me. There's something wrong at the house. There's someone here." And I turned around, shot back to get him, and thought, "Crumbs, what's going on? We've never had this before." And I picked him up, and we were in a hurry to get where we were going. So got back to the house later, and he said, well, in fact, we walked in and Faith said, "No, there's something not right." And I thought, "Oh, crumbs, that's a scary thing when your child who's a psychic medium says that to you, a regular child, you
Right.
think, "Ooh." Anyway, I wandered around. I couldn't pick up anything myself. And, I tried to reassure them, "Guys, come on, let's get you into bed." "No, I'm not going to bed," they're saying. Anyway, about a week, maybe even a few days before Halloween, Faith came running downstairs, threw herself at me in the living room, and said, "Make her stop, make her stop." And she was screaming at me with her hands clamped on her ears, "Make her stop." This lady was screaming at her, screaming a date at her. And again, this was completely new for us. We've got through 10 years of lovely visitors, and suddenly we have someone who's really quite frightening. She looks frightening. Her behavior is now frightening, to Faith at least. And I said to her, "Okay, well, can we talk to her?" And of course, Faith is saying, "No, I don't want to talk to her. She's too scary." And I said, "God, what am I doing? I'll talk to her." So, and not kidding, the room lights were flickering. It was like something out of the movies, and it was frightening. I can understand why, when you don't understand what's going on, this is really frightening. Who is here? It's like something out of a movie, and all the horror movies that you watched as a teenager and scared yourself silly with.
Exactly.
So I said out loud to the room, I could sense my guide stepping close. I could sense the energy change. Faith herself was terrified, which, as I say, is the first time ever. And I just said out loud to the room, I said, "Okay, I know you're here. I don't know who you are, but you clearly need help." And I said, "I promise you I will get you some help. But please," I said, "you're frightening us. Can I just ask you to step back for now? And I promise you with all my heart, I will get you some help." And I turned to Faith and I said, is she listening? Is she accepting this? Is this okay?" And she said, "She's gone." She literally, the minute I said, "I will get you help, I promise you, please just step back," she'd step back immediately. And the next day, my son Tom went upstairs and he said, "Mum, I've just seen someone dash from your room into Faith's room." And I said, "Yeah, it's okay." I said, "It's the lady." I said, "She's trying to stay out of your way because I explained that you were frightened. I said, just, bear with her." I said, "She doesn't mean us any harm at all. I'm quite sure she would not have stepped back when I asked her to if she meant us any harm." And what I did is I got in contact with Stuart Keyes, who's a British celebrity psychic medium who's written the foreword to Raising Faith. And he dealt with it, and within 24 hours, he said he was on holiday at the time. He sent his guide Solomon to help and moved her on. And that's all she wanted, was help moving back into the light. I don't know what the date was. I'm not quite sure of the significance. The date was in a few weeks' time, so I don't know what happened at that date. If it was an anniversary for her, I'm not sure. But really, just to reassure you that even when the behavior seems frightening, she didn't mean us any harm. It was just her way of getting attention. And the quickest way she could do that was to make a fuss and to cause a bit of, noise in the house, that then got her the help she needed. And I think this happens quite a lot, but it's not always someone frightening. It's just, and I think the reason she was frightening to Faith is because she was diseased, like the lady in the book. And I think what had happened is, having abilities and having read such a scary story, she'd opened a doorway. She'd enabled somebody with a similar energy to step in, and she was presenting like the woman in the book, which is why she appeared frightening, because obviously the character in the book was a frightening lady. But this lady herself actually meant us no harm at all.
Yeah, it makes so much sense, because again, as a child, I never had any kind of a scary experience. It wasn't until I got a little older and I visually started seeing some spirits of how they died, and how they would present themselves with the injuries. So, like, at one point, I remember one guy was in a really bad car accident, and his like eyeball was like hanging out and stuff. And I mean, it
That's
did. It
scary.
reminded me of a scary movie,
Mm.
and immediately I was freaked out, and I did not want to see anything like that. And I'm not somebody who likes to be like like have somebody jump out and scare them and think it's funny. I never found that funny. So it did find a little unnerving because spirits, like you could walk around a corner and then all of a sudden, boom, you're face to face, with one, or you walk through one and you get this weird feel, so uh, it is, I think, television, movies, books,
Yeah.
scary stories do play a big role in the fear aspect
Mm.
that we have. And again, just because they look scary does not mean that they're out to get you.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they might be the ones that need the help the most because
Yeah.
they died either suddenly or tragically and don't even realize that they are dead.
Yeah.
And then, in my experience, then they end up experiencing almost like the groundhog event, where each time their day, it just repeats itself. And so
Yes.
it starts over, and at the end of, that day, they're going to end up tragically dying. I mean, who in the world wants to live like that? And you wake up and you don't even understand like why it's happening
Yeah.
because you don't realize you're dead yet. So yeah, very uh, I think that plays a lot into it. So again, I think that's why, like doing a show like this, writing the book like you did, uh, being very open with your children, and trying to get to the bottom of things and find out, are they scary? Like in Rosa's situation, are they scary because of how it's presenting itself?
Mm.
Or is it scary because you feel like you're in danger, or it's shown that it's something to be dangerous or wants to hurt you? So
Mm.
I do think that's really important. Let's see. Lorraine says, looking good. Oh, thank you, Lorraine. Thanks for joining us. Hon. Rosa said, sorry, internet went down. I'll rewatch after all is done. Thanks. Thank you, and Claire, for the information, and 100%. And hey, Bradley, nice to see you as well. So let's talk about, again, the first time that the kids started reporting things to you.
Well, Faith was obviously still, she was young. We'd not long found out about her abilities when she started talking to me about what she was seeing, and as I said earlier, it would be at bedtime. She was little, she'd had her bath, we tucked her into bed, she'd settled down. So, spirit can always contact us much easier, I think, when we're quiet, when we're settled, when we're
Right.
relaxed,
Yeah.
especially at night when technology's down and, it's just there's less interruptions and energies to get in the way. So it would be at bedtime, and what the one in particular that I do write about this in Raising Faith, because it struck me as, oh my goodness. Uh, she said, "Oh, there's a man, and he's a new man at the end of my bed." And she gave me his name, and it was not a name that was, in my mind, it wasn't a very British name. I don't know where she'd heard of such a name, so clearly it had come from him. I knew straight away, this is not a name you've picked up from, down the road. And I said, okay, well, lovely. Inside, because I've not long found out about her abilities. I'm thinking, there's a man in her bedroom. Why is there a man in my daughter's bedroom? She's only 4. I don't understand. And I said, well, what does he want? And she stopped and she said, he says he's here to help me with courage. And courage is not a word that she was familiar with at 4. That's a big word for a little girl.
Right.
And I said, okay, I said, and I knew straight away what it was about, because she'd been having some difficulties at school. She just started school, which I don't know what age they start in the States, but certainly in the UK they start about 4. And she just started school and she was having some trouble settling in. And so he was there to help bring her some courage to help with school. And she described what he looked like. And I said, okay, well, tell me a bit about him. And she said, well, he had 2 children. And she reeled off the ages that the children were, and she said, and he still sees his children, he still visits them now. And I said, okay, lovely, tell me something else. I was fascinated. I was learning so much from her, and she was so little. And she said, oh, well, he died in a car accident. And I was just like struck with shock, and I thought, crumbs, oh, this isn't appropriate. She's just 4. And we'd never, we'd dealt with dying. My grandfather had died, and she'd been aware of that, but we'd never really discussed the tragic ways people can die, you know. I mean, Grandad was an old man, so it was easy to explain that one. But to say that someone's died in a car accident, we just never had those conversations with her because she was so very young. And so to hear her come out with, "Well, he died in a car accident," I was like, oh my goodness. And I, kind of silently said to myself, "Oh my gosh, please don't say anything more scary. Please don't say anything more inappropriate for her." And he didn't. Nothing else came out that was frightening. But it was a real moment of wow for me because, I mean, I'd literally only just found out about her abilities. So to be communicating with someone we'd never heard of, to hear about him and his family and his children and how he died, this was huge for me. Um, and to know that he was actually there as one of her guides to help her with courage. And I was able to say to her, "Wow," I said, "he's come to help you at school. Isn't that lovely?" And I'd started learning bits by then. So I just said to her, "How lovely." I said, "So whenever you're worried, you can call Joseph," which was his name, and you can ask him to help you. I said, "So if you see him when you're at school, you know why he's there." And she was really comfortable with this. She was comfortable with him. She wasn't for a second frightened. Very comfortable having him there. Very happy that he was around. But then I had to tuck her in and turn the light out and leave her in her bedroom all by herself. And for me as a parent, this was new. This was scary. This was bizarre to think I'm leaving my child in a room with a man I've never met.
Right.
But to her, this was completely normal. They've been there forever, and it wasn't a problem for her. It was just me that had to get my head around this. And I just remember leaving the door ajar instead of shutting it completely because now my panic and my fears were, stepping forward. So, yeah, it took me some time to get my head around that and to realize, well, she's not frightened, and she's been doing this for years without my knowledge. And to think that, she'd been experiencing this all of her life for 4 whole years, and I had no idea.
Right.
And lovely as it would have been to sweep it under the carpet, I just couldn't, because if I did, then I was leaving her to it, and you just can't do that. You're a
Right.
mum, and my job is to protect her and to look after her and to at least be a source of information if she needs it. So that's kind of where my journey began in starting to learn for myself about the spirit world, so that I'd have some knowledge to help her if we needed it.
Do you think that we're kind of programmed of, what is expected of us as a parent and, to teach them what they should be afraid of and what they shouldn't, and the boundaries of what you teach a child at what age? Because sometimes I feel like we don't give enough credit to what children are able to handle.
Yeah.
And I think that by talking about all this stuff very young, before really any of those fears can be instilled from television and movies and all that kind of stuff, because they can kind of separate it. Um, I think that we don't give our kids with psychic abilities the benefit that they can handle it, and that actually being very honest with them, because again, death is a part of life, and if their psychic abilities are turned on, they're going to be seeing them all the time. And again, not everybody dies pleasantly, not everybody dies happier. And so I think that teaching them all these different things and being very open, and like you did, I mean, again, you were able to kind of distill any option for fear to be there, and an explanation that, okay, if you need help, oh, how nice this is. So you didn't even plant that seed. So do you think that we don't give enough credit, or do you think that it's just because we're kind of programmed of, you don't teach kids, or you don't talk to young children about death, they don't understand it? Because I think they understand a whole lot more than we give them credit for.
Yes, and I think for me, I've always been quite open with them anyway. I've always spoken to them in a way where I felt they understood most things. And I guess for me, the fear is taken out of things when you can have a conversation about it, when you can
Right.
talk about
Right.
it. So I guess that's just how I naturally dealt with that one, because I couldn't do anything else, to be honest. There's a man in her room. There's no point me panicking and freaking out. It's not going to help the situation. So the fact she was so comfortable, I took my cue from her, really. And was just, I'd only just started learning. So, it was easy enough to just realize, oh, that's actually really nice. You've got someone helping you with that thing that you need help with right now. And we've always talked about it, and everything else as a parent like that, to be honest, And I think I've been blessed in that because I'm a practitioner, I'm a homeopath. I see lots of people. I hear lots of tragedies. I hear lots of scary things. I've heard it all, and you learn in the end that stuff's happening to people all the time, and you understand better. You see the bigger picture, I think, when you're a healer or a practitioner, and I think you recognize people for what's going on. You don't judge them so quickly, and I think it's helped me talk to them about things in a way that instead of putting my own personal opinion on that, I'm able to see the bigger picture and say, do you know what, maybe they've handled it that way because of this, maybe there's something else going on in their life. I think that's probably opened me up to be able to be more helpful to them, because I can understand it isn't just what it seems.
Right.
So I think I probably look at things in a way. I've been lucky that I've heard enough other scary stories in my time that I can see it for what it is. So I think that's probably helped, to be honest. Whereas I think if you've not had those opportunities to hear what goes on in people's lives, maybe it does seem more scary. Maybe it does seem more dramatic than it needs to be, and maybe it does seem more fearful and more, just more frightening.
So would your advice be, if your child comes to you, to just kind of take the lead from them, and if they're wanting to discuss a topic that maybe we would consider taboo, or they're too young to address something like that, do you think we should, if they're asking the questions?
Yeah, I mean, even when the children ask questions about, I don't know, drugs, or I don't know, somebody, a teenager that's suicidal. I don't know. These subjects do
Right.
come up. These subjects do come up over the years, and they ask me about that. And you could just sweep it under the carpet and say, "Oh well, oh that's for grown-ups only," or you can have the conversation about it and say, "Okay, well actually sometimes they're terribly sad, and sometimes this can happen," and I've always just done it that way. So I do sometimes worry if I've said things that maybe aren't appropriate for their age, but I try and explain it in a way that hopefully isn't too scary. And I hope that by understanding it a bit better, that they also will hopefully grow up to be less judgmental about why people do some of the things they do, why some people out there hurt other people. There's usually a reason for it. There's often something in their life that's led them to behave that way, and hopefully the children will grow up with an understanding of that. And that's how I've always handled it anyway, is to just discuss it, hopefully in an age appropriate way that gives them some understanding, that sort of answers their questions, but without scaring them to death.
Absolutely. Hey, Michelle, here, Cheryl, Rev Debbie Miller. Nice to see all of you. All right, so I have from Nika off of Twitter is asking, have either of your children had any negative experiences or encounters?
No, other than the one we mentioned earlier, which appeared to be frightening, but actually wasn't. No, we've not had anything negative. We do ground and protect ourselves routinely every day, and I often do that for the children because I'm never convinced they've done it for themselves, because they are teenagers. Um, but I write about this in Raising Faith, different ways you can protect your energy, different things that can happen to you if you haven't protected your energy, that have happened to us over the time. And I also, I think by grounding and protecting, hopefully we're doing our very best not to attract anything, bless you, not to attract anything negative. And I also put a lot of faith in our spirit guides. And I ask the spirit guides that please keep anything away that we don't want to come, please, unless it's for our highest good, anything scary, please keep them back. So I did have one experience. Again, I write about it in Raising Faith. It wasn't so much to do with the children, though. It was really to do with my own work. I treated a lady who was a very difficult lady to deal with. She was very difficult. I explain why in the book. But after treating her, I became under par. I couldn't even explain it. I just didn't feel very well. And I kept saying to Faith, is there something wrong with me? Can you ask my spirit guides? And she would just say, they're just telling me you have to figure it out yourself. They won't tell you. I was like, God, that's really helpful. And I was quite grumpy with it, like, really, come on, help me out here. And I'd say, look, can you see anything in my aura? What is there? And she'd just say, no, it has all the usual colors, but there's like a black circle around your aura. And I was like, crumbs, what does that mean? Am I ill? And most people go and see a doctor. No, I went to see a psychic medium. So I went to see Stuart Keyes, the psychic medium who's written the foreword on the book. And he he did a double take when he saw me, because he literally saw what was attached to me and went, crumbs. And he helped me. He removed this attachment that I had from this patient, is where I'd picked up this attachment. And he said that's actually the second scariest energy I've ever seen on somebody. And the lady who I treated had voodoo done on her. And the voodoo, the dark energy had jumped from her onto me. Being a light worker, it could do a lot more havoc on me than on one patient. And that was the one and only time that I had something that I didn't even think existed at the time. I was all for believing it was all good and lovely and white light, and I didn't really want to believe in a dark energy. And so I did have that one experience. Again, I was really lucky that it I wasn't frightened by it. I just felt really sick and poorly by it.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing a psychic medium, they were able to remove that attachment for me, which I'm super grateful for. But the children themselves, no, they've never had anything scary. And ever since that one time, and I might add, I do believe that happened to me to teach me that lesson, because I had been told years before that my patients were draining the life out of me and I needed to ground and protect myself better.
Yeah.
And I thought better. I was like, no other homeopath I know has to ground and protect. Why would I need to do that? And I had been wearing a quartz crystal as a pendulum around my neck for some time. And I always just kind of left it to the pendulum to protect me. I didn't ground to protect myself. I was just like, no, the crystal's going to sort that out for me. And I broke the crystal actually fell off of my neck and smashed on the floor some weeks before this incident. And I'm pretty confident it all happened, divine timing. The crystal smashed. I then had this patient. I then had the attachment, and I then had to get help. And once again, I was told, you're not grounding and protecting. That's how this happened to you. Big lesson for you here. Do not let this happen to you again. So for me, it was a big wake-up call. And I'm quite sure that was sent to me to teach me something that I really needed to understand. Because if I'm not grounding and protecting, I'm not teaching my children that they need to ground and protect, and bigger things could happen. So I think that's the most important thing for people with gifts to understand, are the basics in protecting yourself and your energy. Because otherwise you're going to walk around like Velcro, and you're going to pick up all the energies around you at school, in your day, all the negative emotions. It's all just going to get stuck on you, and you're going to feel tired and terrible. And you can just do some basic grounding and protecting to help yourself so that doesn't happen. And as I say, as well as that, I do also trust and I ask our spirit guides to keep anything at bay unless it's good and we need to learn from it.
Now, do you teach your children, now that they're, at the teenage years right now, about the negative things that, they can encounter, so that, because again, protecting yourself is great. But again, there's always, they'll say, oh, yeah, that's great. And then, not remember. The one thing with us is we are absolutely amazing at giving advice.
Yeah.
We make great therapists, but we suck at following our own.
Totally. I do agree with that. The children are aware of it, mainly because I'm not sure they were particularly aware of the attachment. I mean, I think I did tell them at the time, but, they were little then.
Right.
But certainly the visitor we had at Halloween scared them enough. Even though she meant no harm, her activity scared them enough that I continually say to them at the beginning of every day before we head to school, have you done your grounding and protecting? And they'll kind of roll their eyes at me, because they're teenagers. Oh, I don't used to do that. Yes, you do. And if you don't, would you like another visitor? Would you like another lady from Halloween back again? And I just remind them of that. And I use that as an example of, you are going to pick up everything if you don't do it. And as I said, I'll often do it for them, even though they don't know that. I'll do my own, and I'll create a bubble around them, and I'll visualize on their behalf just in case. But they need to learn it for themselves, so they don't know I do that for them. So I just tell them to do it themselves.
Absolutely, especially being surrounded by, in school, and then,
Yeah.
just uh, that's draining enough,
Mm.
and then you've got everybody's energy, anything that may be following anybody else, there's just so many avenues for something to happen. So again, the more educated they are and to stay on top of it, the less the chances are that they're going to encounter, a attachment. And of course, we don't want anybody to have to go through an attachment, because it's something that will wreak havoc, absolutely in your life. So let's see, Sandra. Hey, beautiful. Sandra's asking, what is the best way to ground and protect?
I'm not sure the best way, but the way that we use a lot of visualization.
Hmm.
So for us, we visualize roots going down into the ground. Um, I visualize a big, strong white light coming down through my crown chakra, all the way down to my root chakra, all the way into the ground, and rooting that way as well. And then I teach the children to put a cloak on, and I say, choose whatever colors you want for your cloak today, and visualize like this enormous cloak with a hood and everything that wraps all the way around me, under my feet, all the way up under my neck. It's just my face visible. And as I said, every day the colors might change, and I think the colors are often reflected in my aura as well. I think I probably just
Hmm.
intuitively choose the colors in my aura that day. But just pick whatever you want in terms of colors, and I give that cloak a job of protecting our energy. And then around that, I then put a bubble of white or golden light around us. Um, and again, that proper bubble that goes all the way around us. And I just say to the bubble, to allow anything good to come in and anything bad to escape, but don't let anything bad in. Nothing dark, nothing bad, nothing frightening. And that's what we do every day. And then we make a point of trying to shower at the end of every day, just to wash off any energies that we may have picked up in the day as well, just to make sure we've just cleansed, we've got rid of all of whatever we've picked up. And so we start the day with the grounding and protecting, and we finish it with our shower and just washing any energies off that we might have picked up during the day. That's what we do, and that seems to work for us. Faith herself actually programmed her shoes, her school shoes, to ground her as well, by the way, in case she forgot. She said, "Oh, I've just asked my shoes to do that for me." Oh, okay. There's a new idea.
Absolutely. So let's see. She says, so basically, meditate with these thoughts daily. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a couple of minutes. It doesn't even have to take that long. Just visualization can be so powerful. So yeah, just every morning when you get out of bed, put your feet on the ground, roots down. Strong white light coming through your crown chakra. Visualize that cloak going on. The cloak's beautiful. It's always beautiful. Mine's always swirly with all sorts of wonderful colors, and sometimes it's sparkly. Jazz it up as much as you want to. But it has a job, and yeah, it's keeping some stuff out that you don't want on you.
Right. And again, you just want to make sure that you're completely engulfed in this, like surrounded by this light, again, which is making a almost like a cocoon, or
Yeah.
a wall around you that's going to surround you so that it's impenetrable. But people also have to remember now, I meditate, I do yoga, I ground, all the things that, I tell everybody that they should do. But when I'm sick, I suffer from a terminal illness. And I know, well, I tell my clients all the time that especially if you have a chronic illness, or even if not, if you are sick, you're not feeling uh, yourself, you're feeling drained, you should not be going out on an investigation, especially if you have abilities, because you being ill or anything, it's like you got this, protective bubble around you that somebody went and, like, hit with a hammer, and now it's got all the little cracks. So all it's going to take is one thing, and they've got an entrance way to come get you. And if you're drained, if you're sick, you're going to draw, especially if there's something negative, you're definitely going to draw it your way, because now it's like, they have a victim in front of them. They know you're weak, and you've
Yeah.
chosen to, still do it. And again, you put yourself in, harm's way if you do things like that. So you got to be very careful. Let's see. Um, Sandra says, awesome. I will. Thank you. You're very welcome, hun. Kelly says, hi, Christina. I finally made it. Been busy editing. Oh, it's great to have you here. So again, if anybody has questions, feel free to continue posting them below, and we will get you the feedback. Let's go back on over to Twitter and check out these questions here. Okay. Darwin is asking, do both of your children now accept their abilities, and are they happy to have them, or do they feel it's a curse?
Well, a couple of years ago, when Faith first started at what we call secondary school, so that's between ages of 11 to 16, she was within the first year. I mean, it's a huge school, I might add. There are hundreds of children there. The hormones are kicking in. It's completely different to the schools that came before this. So she decided, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to do this. And for me, I was like, oh, wow, I've loved this topic all these years. It's been fascinating. But at the end of the day, it's her gift.
Right.
So I said to her, okay, fine. It's your gift. If you don't want to talk about it anymore, that's absolutely fine. If you want to, I'd love to, but okay. So we backed off, and I didn't ask her about it anymore for some time. And she just, at the moment, she does talk about it, but we're very aware it's there. We're very aware she's got the abilities, but she wants to be like everybody else. She's a 14-year-old girl. She just wants to fit in. She doesn't, I mean, none of her friends know, I might add. So this is not a topic that gets discussed at all in her circles. She just wants to be normal. And so for now, we just leave it at that. We respect that. We don't badger her. We don't ask her anything. When we had the visitation in Tom's room recently, the wall-to-wall of people that I mentioned, she's very happy to help out when needed. So, I said to her, look, would you just help us? Could you just go into Tom's room and tell us who's in there? And she'll kind of, roll her eyes, but she'll go in there and she'll do that. And she's very happy to answer and to help. But it's not something that she wants to talk about day in, day out. She thinks I'm wacky, which I think's hilarious. She's like, oh, Mom, you're just so out there. Why can't you be more normal like other mothers? Like, don't you love that? But there's no doubt in my mind that she's been given these gifts for a reason, and hopefully one day she'll choose to use them, and I'm sure she'll do some great work with it one day. But she is just 14, and it's down to her when she uses these gifts and how she uses them. And I'm here if she wants to talk about it, and she knows that. And sometimes she will ask a question, and she's seeing everything I'm doing. She gave her blessing to the book. She's very happy for the book to go out there to help other people, but she doesn't want to be directly involved with it. She has written a section in the book. She's answered some questions about her experiences and how she sees and experiences spirit visitors. But she doesn't want to be the one interviewed. She doesn't want to be the one, that's being asked questions. And we've been careful to use photographs that are not up-to-date photographs for her own privacy, just to give her some space while she's the age she is. So I would say when we wrote the book, she said she was really proud of her abilities. Right now she's 14. I'm not sure she would say she's proud. But I think deep down she is, to be honest. I think she does like what she can do, but she wants to be normal, and that's a crucial thing right now. So we just help her be as normal as she can. For Tom, he's never suggested he wouldn't want his abilities. I think he's more fearful than Faith. Faith has never been really fearful, other than that one visitor. He's more fearful, as I said. I think a lot of that is because he knows they're there, but he can't see them. But he's such a compassionate boy. He's 12, and for him, it's quite hard fitting in at school with other 12-year-olds that are quite rough and tumble. He's not a rough and tumble type. He's very intuitive, very sensitive, very compassionate. It's a tough world for him. Faith has got an inner strength and an inner confidence to her that she copes with whatever's thrown at her. She's incredible in the way that she's very quiet and reserved, and well, she was quiet. She's not so quiet now, but she's certainly reserved. But she has an inner confidence and an inner strength. Tom is just sweet. He's sweet and compassionate. For him, it's a tough world. He's never said he wouldn't want the abilities, and I think his abilities give him the ability to help people. I think he's going to be a great healer one day, because he just gets it. The second I'm off, the second I'm not feeling happy, something's upset me, almost the second I start to think about it, he's straight there by my side immediately. You okay, mum? Do you need a hug, mum? You know, and he will be the first one giving me a hug, checking I'm okay. And
Oh,
it's just incredible how he can tune into emotions in that way. So yeah, he's not unhappy, but he's also never. I don't think he particularly recognizes he's different, to be honest. Um, yeah, he's just who he is.
well, in my research, I really kind of noticed that from 12 to 18. Oh, hold on just a second. I need to plug in the laptop before it dies. So I've noticed that between 12 and 18 is probably the hardest ages for children with psychics. They're going through all the hormonal changes.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's you're going in between, middle school and high school, so you have all these changes. And as you said, at this age, they really want to fit in. And unfortunately, children that have psychic abilities, we almost end up being like chameleons.
Yeah.
Like we can fit into any environment, but even though we may seem happy, there's that part of us that we just wish we were like everybody else, and didn't have these things to be different. Now, again, as time goes on, you start to realize the benefit, of having these abilities, but there is a downside. And again, it's the yin and the yang, the good and the bad. I mean, everything is needed to make that balance. But when you're already off kilter trying to figure out where you know, even fit in this strange world, then to have all of this on top of it makes it very hard. And it's why you get a lot of people, even adult psychics, that say it's kind of you're riding the fence. It's, a blessing and a curse at the same time, because it's not something you can really control. You can't turn it on and off like a light switch. You don't get to choose who comes to you, what the messages are, how they are. Sometimes it's very intrusive. You get no time for yourself. But then on the other side, once you start using your abilities to give back and to help others, the rewards that you get, energy speaking, it's like the karmic energy that you're getting, for everything that you've put out, you're going to get back tenfold. Once you start receiving that, then it changes a little bit more. Then you realize there's this balance that you have to learn, but we're also very adaptable. Again, we can, no matter what the situation, we can usually grasp it, deal with it, and move on, because that's just kind of how we're wired. But again, I think that this is just a period of where they really try to find themselves. But then it's like once they get over this hump, and my children growing up, anytime they have their friends, because I volunteered at their school, like I chaperoned everything, like sleepovers were only done at my house. And, so I was like the neighborhood mom. So everybody loved me. But the first thing that my kids would say when their friends were coming over is, do not talk about that ghost.
Yeah.
Do not talk about that. Like, I just want you to be like all the other parents. And, so I'd say, okay, well, once they became like 17, 18, now mind you, all of my children are very gifted as well, but they never wanted to embrace that. They didn't want to talk about it, none of that. And so I always left it I felt like once they got to the point where, they felt comfortable, they would come to me, and then we would have the discussion.
Yeah.
So about 17, 18, it really started changing. It's like once they graduated from high school and they were like now out, it was like they're not judged by all of their friends that they see every single day or the people they see every single day. Then it changed, and then now it was out on TV. And so then, like, every time I turn around, they were introducing me. Oh yeah, my mom's a ghost hunter, and she can speak to the dead. And it was like now I was like this,
Now
circus
you're
attraction.
cool.
I know, yeah. And she was always coming, oh, my friends, they heard, they saw the lights flicker at their house, and so we wanted to see what you think it is. Oh, do you think you can give her mom a reading? It was always something. And then at that point, then my kids actually started talking about the experiences that they were having and were more curious, I guess. And now finally said, okay, it's not that you're some crazy woman that's just making stuff up. Like,
Yeah.
we had this stuff happen too. It was just very weird back then. And, again, it was nothing cool. And now it's kind of switched. So it's like, okay, now I can embrace it. Now I want to know what's going on. And again, I think that it depends on each child, how strong their abilities are, because if it's like my kids would see things here and there, and they're very much empaths and sensitive. So it was more that than seeing things.
Yeah.
So again, it was a little bit different for kids like myself and for like your children, that from as young as they can remember, there's always something going on. It's a little bit more because you're really trying to figure out what in the world's going on with you, and why isn't it going on with everybody? Like, why aren't we all talking about this? And
Yeah.
it's only me. So
Yeah.
actually, Joe, it's got a whole bunch of stuff here. Sandra says, I think it's hard to be social in groups because I pick up all different energies and it's exhausting. And you are 100% correct, especially if you're a sensitive or an empath. And it can really, to be absolutely honest, it can make you feel like you're crazy or a little bipolar, because you can walk in, you could be having a great day, and you can walk in to a crowd of people, and then you might feel like all of a sudden you want to cry. You might feel like all of a sudden you're angry, and you don't even know why so much. You just like to go and punch somebody, and you're trying to figure out what in the world, this isn't even how I think, or how I would react. And yes, you're absolutely right. It's not. You are picking up the energy from everybody else around you, which again is why grounding and protecting is so important, because
Yeah.
it will kind of push that away some. If you're a very strong, empath, you're not going to be able to shut it completely down, but it will not be as overwhelming. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, definitely. I used to have
that's
it going to the supermarket, everywhere I went, when I wasn't grounding and protecting, everywhere I went, I'd come home and I'd think, oh, I feel a bit annoyed. I feel a bit grumpy. What? I don't know why. It wasn't me. And
right.
I'd walk in and I'd say to Faith, and she was, pretty little, and I'd just say, I don't feel very well. Would you just ask for me? And she'd just look at me and go, you didn't protect before you went out the door. It's like, oh no, I didn't, did I? And it was as simple as that. I'd literally been
Yeah.
like Velcro. I just picked up everything in the supermarket, all the way around, come home feeling dreadful. So grounding and protecting for me changes that. I don't have that happen. I mean, like you said, you're going to pick up some stuff. You're still going to be able to tune into people, but you're just not going to be. It's not going to be stuck on you all day, feeling grumpy, feeling horrid, feeling tired and drained.
100%. And like for my grandchildren, they're very gifted as well. And even as young as they are, we started noticing, where what a lot of times people would say some ADHD or things like that. I think that, children with abilities are misdiagnosed quite often, and so
Yeah.
they are, immediately put on all of these meds and things. And my nephew, uh, he was diagnosed with ADHD. And I will tell you, you know, and with other kids that I've worked with, teaching them to ground and protect and to meditate
Mm-hmm.
was so beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't, realize, again, with as an adult, if you have anxiety, and just feel like when all of a sudden you have an anxiety or a panic attack, that comes in, overwhelms you, and, can bring a grown person to their knees because it's so, upsetting. So just imagine the same reactions happen to our children who are
Yeah.
very young at age, and they're being bombarded, like when we take them shopping to the mall or to the grocery store where there's a lot of people. And I've seen kids where they absolutely hate going to all these places, and the parent will think, oh, they just want to stay home and play, or I'm not going to deal with all that. but they do. I mean, they're absorbing all this energy. It's just way too overwhelming, for them. So I started teaching meditation. And, for some people, especially that would say, like, I grew up Catholic as well, but like from the very strict religious backgrounds, I got a lot of flack from them because when I said meditation, oh, we're going to teach them to meditate or her to meditate, they would look at me as if, I just spoken, like some horrible, thing. And they said, oh, well, we're Christian. We don't meditate. We pray. Okay, well, you can be Christian and you can still meditate. It has no difference. I said, look at it this way. So when we're praying, we're asking, questions, or we're asking for different things. When you're meditating, you're now putting yourself where you're opening yourself to the answers.
Yeah, you're listening as opposed to asking. Yeah.
And when I put it that way, it was like, oh, okay, that somehow made a light go on, that okay, maybe it's not so bad. But again, for young children, I think, teaching them these kinds of skills, which are just so simple. And again, visualization. Now they've got a million different, YouTube videos that are, structured just for this. And, I always say when people are first starting out that guided meditation is the best meditation you can get, because so many people say, oh, well, I tried meditation, but I sat there with my legs crossed, and I just, my mind was going. I couldn't even get into a space that they wanted me to get. I wasn't seeing any of the stuff. Well, it's because you don't know what you're doing. So it's just like, okay, I've seen people who just cross their legs and are sitting like this, and I tell people, no, you get comfortable. I don't care where you can meditate as you're driving along the road. You don't have to close your eyes. You don't have to do all of that. Once you know how to do this, like I meditate, as I'm driving up to a location where I know an event where I know I'm going to go deal with a lot of people, all these different kinds of things. So I think that that's very important. Do your children participate in any kind of meditation exercises?
It's interesting you talking about it, actually. No, I have tried. They're not that open to it at the moment. I think I tried to do meditation CDs when they were younger. But they were just like, could you just turn it off? They just weren't in the right frame of mind for it. And at the moment, I think I'd struggle. I will certainly try it. It's a really good idea. When you talked about anxiety, I thought, oh, that's a good idea. I mean, I do it all the time. I meditate every day. But no, I haven't actually. It's difficult because I can suggest things to them, but they're of an age now where if they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. But it's a really good idea. I mean, obviously, I know it works. It works for me all the time. I think the thing is they're of an age now where they just want to do what everyone else their age is doing. And at the moment, I don't think it will be cool enough. But I think in a couple of years' time, it's the same with nutrition. I bang on about nutrition all the time and how important this is. And again, they roll their eyes at me because, well, none of the other mums put that stuff in their lunchboxes. Why do I have to have that in my lunchbox? They just want to be like everyone else at the moment, which makes it hard for me to make any changes for them. But yeah, I can teach them, but they're not quite ready to listen just yet.
And you're also mom. So I know my kids, like you can tell them, the same thing over and over and over. And, it's like goes in one ear and out the other. And then, somebody else I know can come up and tell them the exact same word for word what I've said. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's like amazing. I wish I would have known this years ago. And I'm like, seriously, I've been telling you that for like the last 15. Like, where are you coming from? But again, I think that they just get that selective hearing. So a lot of what they say just goes up. What I noticed is like when I started noticing that my children were dealing with stress, and especially in this age, and with schooling and how stressful it is just going to school and having to learn all the different things and fit in. That's when I kind of addressed it. And again, everybody's got this like preconceived idea of like what it is to meditate, and most people don't really have a clue. So that's why I like the guided meditation. And I always say, get your phone and put it on the YouTube video link, click on it and right before you're going to go to bed. And I always choose specific ones when they're starting that are not longer than 10 minutes because children have a very short attention span.
Yeah.
So if it's going to be, an hour long meditation like we might do, you're going to lose them after the first 5 minutes. But if it's when they're getting ready to go to sleep, it's 8 to 10 minutes long. It's quick. All they have to do is listen. They don't have to do anything other than listen because your brain is going to follow the directions rather consciously or subconsciously.
Yeah.
And then what I do is I also tell my kids or the kids I mentor, like, set your alarm for 10 or 15 minutes earlier in the morning and use those 10 or 15 minutes to lay there and kind of wake up. Same thing. There's a different one for when you wake up, and it's a meditation that also focuses on grounding and protection. And
Yeah.
so again, all you're doing is listening, but it's just automatic. And again, so you've kind of started out your day, and then at the end of the day, it helps. And once they start to kind of see the difference and see that, oh, they don't have to go and sit cross-legged and chant or any of these things, and it's so easy and it's so quick, I definitely that changes the mindset of it. Like my one daughter, she definitely got it. She was a little standoffish at the beginning, and then I said, well, you know what? Look, I'll just send you some. Just check it out, and if you feel like you're like overwhelmed and stressed, just like when you're going on your walk, throw in your earphones and listen to it while you're walking.
Good
And
plan.
so when I gave some different options of when it might be helpful, so that nobody had to even know what they were listening to, you just put your
Yeah.
earphones in. They started utilizing it, and then once my daughter started utilizing it, she was like, "Wow, this really does help." Because again, all of my kids, without really having some control over your abilities, uh, 9 out of 10 kids with abilities are going to suffer from high anxiety and
Yeah,
panic attacks.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
again, it's all that bridled stress and energy that they don't know what to do with. So
Yeah.
that's what they hold on to it, and then we end up having these things. So it definitely helps. Uh, People are asking if they want to buy the book, where would they buy it at? And you can get it on your website, right?
Yeah, there's links on the website, but it takes you to Amazon in all the different countries. So the book's available wherever books are available to buy. But Amazon is the obvious place. It's in Amazon UK, Amazon US, Amazon Australia, yeah, New Zealand. There's loads of different places you can buy it via Amazon, or if it's not in your local bookshop, you can order it from there. But otherwise, it's in pretty much everywhere that you can buy books online anyway.
Um, I wanted to know if you have a Facebook, and if so, what is it under so that they can look you up? I know you
Yeah.
have a public page, right? A business page,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's facebook.com/raising faith book.
Raising
And
Facebook.
yeah, and literally that's updated practically daily. So that is the main place to go for any new changes, any new information, any links to the website, anything at all, any interviews I've done, all of it will be on there. So that's a good place to stay in touch.
Well, going with your experiences, what do you think would be, like, say, the top three pieces of advice you would give to listeners of parents that feel that they may have a psychic child or know that their child has psychic abilities?
Number one would be, I mean, we've talked about a lot of them, but number one would be to listen to them, not to sweep it under the carpet, not to dismiss it as imaginary friends. Listen to them, hear what they're trying to tell you. Um, I think, as I said earlier, there's so many people over the years who've lost their abilities because they weren't believed when they were children, and it's taken them years to get it back again. So I think that in itself is the number one priority, is to be there for them, in that they can talk to you about it, they can feel comfortable talking to you about it. My husband is not that comfortable with the topic. It frightens him. He's not sure he believes it, even though we've tried to validate it for him. And even though I would love for the children to talk to him about it to help him come around, they don't, because they know that he's not sure about it. So it's because I'm comfortable talking about it that they feel able to talk to me about it. So I think that's important, is to be available to them if they want to discuss it with you. Um, Certainly for me, I think learning about this topic myself has been massively important. Learning what you can about the spirit world, about psychic activities, reading as many books as you can, just educating yourself on this topic if you're a parent to psychic children, so that you understand what they're experiencing and there are some ways that you can help them along the way. Um, if nothing else, to be able to hold a conversation with them about what's going on and to reassure them when the need arises. Um, and as we've talked about, I think number 3 would be teaching them to ground and protect. I think that's the biggest thing you can do for them, is being there to talk to them, learning about the topic so that you can have the conversations with them and you understand what they're going through, and teaching them and yourself to ground and protect so that you are safe, so that you are not picking up all the bad energies, because otherwise you're going to be on a roller coaster. It's going to be rough, you're going to be up and down in your moods all the time. You won't know whether you're coming or going. So I think they're the 3 crucial things I would say to understand and to learn as much as you can about.
100%. I would completely agree with you. I have Lori, and she's wanting to know, do you feel that your children will follow in your footstep as far as helping other people or in a holistic way?
Yeah, I would imagine so. Time will tell exactly what they're here to do, but I do believe they've been given these gifts for a higher purpose, which will become clear as they are older. I think Faith, in particular, her abilities are really quite impressive, and I'm sure she doesn't just have that by coincidence. Not that I believe in a coincidence anyway. It's all there for a reason. So I'm sure her role is important, and I'm sure one day she'll use it for the good of others. But for now, she's a teenage girl, and I just leave her to it as much as I can, and wait for her to awaken properly, if you like, and to understand what she wants to do with it. I have, in the last week, actually, as I've been meeting psychic mediums to interview them, I've been told how powerful Tom is. So although his abilities don't seem as impressive because he can't see them and talk to them in the same way that Faith can, we've talked about how intuitive and empathic and compassionate he is. But 3 different people have said to me, my goodness, your son has some really impressive qualities. And that's why his room was full of wall-to-wall people coming to see him. So he's going to do something incredible one day. It just, time will tell what that's going to be. And it's down to him, really, to open that up and to do something with it one day.
Yeah, I definitely see him doing some energy work, which, maybe, in the Reiki healing, type of
Yeah.
work. But he seems to be the one that is more withdrawn, but again, very, very strong as far as his abilities. Both of them are very, very strong, but just in completely different ways. Hers is
Yeah.
more of a communication, where his is more going to be an energy worker. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I get from the 2 of it. So I think that.
Yeah, that would make sense with his compassion for people. That would make perfect sense to me. That stands out above and beyond everything, is how compassionate he is, and he doesn't understand when people are unkind. He really finds that hard to understand and to tolerate.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
and to again, because he's working on the positive, energy, and there again are a lot of crappy people out there, but that's also going to be one of his downsides of, him being so sensitive, where, things like that, he really takes it to heart.
Yeah.
It's almost like traumatizing, to have
Yeah.
somebody actually, like, when it comes to a point where, somebody actually, say, a girl or something, breaks his heart, he will
Yeah,
take
I
it
know.
very hard, right? It's not just going to be like a regular boy, oh my gosh, she
Yeah.
broke my heart. He's going to be like a girl getting her heart broke for the first time times like 100,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
think that it's going to be
Yeah. It's a
interesting.
sensitive one.
Sandra says, I'm like that too, very compassionate. And, again, that is something that, especially with very strong abilities, we do have that. And we are also usually very drawn to broken people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And people that will, we've seen them like do really bad things to other people, but we feel like, oh, we're such a good person that why would they do anything, because we would never give them a reason. And
Yeah.
so again, we're drawn to these people, and we usually learn less their lesson learning,
Yeah.
encounters. But again, it's just kind of, you see it across the board. uh is That's just kind of who we are. We're very drawn to wanting to help people, and the more broken they are, the more we feel like we can be a help to them. So
I think one of the things I've learned over the years as well is to have good boundaries.
yes,
When you become an energy worker, you want to help everybody, but you actually need to keep yourself well too. That's crucial. I always describe it a bit like an airline mask. You've got to put your own mask on before you can help anybody else. And I also
absolutely.
think boundaries are crucial. You can help lots of people, but you also need to be aware of who drains your energy and who lifts you higher, and to spend your time as much as you can in the company of those that are good for you, that lift you higher. Because if you only ever spend your time with the people that are in a bad place, you're just going to be exhausted. You've got to recharge your batteries too. So, and understanding there are some people who will continue to drain your energy no matter how much you give them. I think it's important to recognize that as well, and to look after yourself there. You can't help everybody. You do sometimes just have to draw a line and move on for your own sake.
Yeah. And you have to learn too that, it is 100% okay to say no,
Yeah.
because a lot of times we're guilted into doing things, when we know that it's not, good for us. And again, like you said, if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't help. If we can't take care of ourselves, we can't help other people. So it's very
Yeah.
important that we, take care of ourselves. That, like you said, that there are boundaries, and think about yourself. You can help people all the time, but there's a lot of people that they're energy vampires. They just want as much as they can get from you, and then when you put a stop to it, they turn on you. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just kind of, how it works. Sandra says, yes, true. I am learning boundaries. You have to. And, again, we are very caring, compassionate, sensitive people. We want to help. We want to do good. Um, but again, we also are drawn to people who will try to walk all over us. And because you want to be that good person, you don't want to say anything. So again, it's finding your place and your worth.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
it's important with all of this. Rosa says, I got to learn how to say no. I just can't. It's really not in my nature to say no. Well, and when you decide to, it's a choice. So it is in your nature. You just choose not to. But the problem is that when you don't say no, you don't take care of yourself, you let people take advantage of you, all this kind of stuff, it will end up, the stress and all the stuff that happens will manifest into your health. And so you will start noticing that, your health is, starting to you start to have issues with your health. And uh, again, all because you can't place boundaries. So there's nothing wrong with saying no. You don't have to be mean about it, but if you're
I
tired,
Yeah, I think that's something for Rosa as well. It's the delivery of the no. You don't have to literally say to people, "No, I'm not prepared to
right?
help you." It's the way that you can politely decline to help them with that. I'm so sorry, I'm not able to do that one on this occasion, or I can't join you for that on that date. Find an excuse that is a polite way of declining, that's effectively protecting you. It doesn't have to sound like a no. It doesn't have to sound rude. It can be perfectly lovely. It's just learning the way to deliver that message that's protecting yourself.
100%, 100%. All right, so we've got about 5 minutes left in the show. Is there anything else you'd like to put out? And let's plug your website once again. So you've got a lot of great information there. So it's kind of a one-stop shop there.
Yeah, so the website's raisingfaith.co.uk. As I said, there's information. There's going to be videos loaded on there very soon in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be really helpful to a lot of people. Different experiences from different psychic mediums growing up and what they went through, and also raising their own psychic children in most cases, or the therapies they do that can be really helpful to psychic children. So if you don't already know a lot about all the different alternative therapies out there, there are so many different things that can help these children that are sensitive. So these videos, I think, are going to be really helpful, as well as the one I mentioned about attracting the wrong kinds of spirits and clearing them out if you need to. There's also a section on the website for sharing your stories if you would like to. I would love to hear from more people about their own experiences, because it helps me too, and I just think by sharing our stories with each other, you put it out there on the website, everyone can read it, everyone can learn something new from those experiences. There's the Facebook page we've talked about, which is Raising Faith Book. Please do go and have a look at that, and do sign up to follow, because everything that I do is going to be loaded on there first. And yeah, if you would like a copy of Raising Faith, it's available everywhere, but Amazon's definitely selling it. It's doing really well. And then following on from the book, what I want to do is, like you are, Christina, really, is to be that person people can come to for help and advice. I would like to set up groups that these children and these parents can be involved with, so that we can support them more in what they're experiencing, and just guiding people through what's happening week to week, really. Because I just think by being in the same group together, we can all learn from each other and what we're experiencing this week. So yeah, there's more to come, but yeah.
Absolutely. And again, when you're ready to do that, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you, give you some tips and stuff of how to do all of it. I mean, again, we're all out here for the same goal.
Yeah.
And, I think this is definitely a lot of information that's very important. And again, that can save a lot of not only children, the distress of having to go through this alone, but parents feeling like they have nowhere to reach out and no support system themselves. So
yeah, and it's a consolidation of stuff I've learned from multiple different sources as well. So when it's about psychic children, it's all in one place, rather than having to read for years on end all the different things. Hopefully it's helpful to people.
Absolutely. Sandra says, thank you for this time. Great information that I think I needed right now. Well, see, again, this is exactly the reason why we do shows like this. Is exactly why we put the information and our experiences out for people like you, Sandra. I mean, again, if my theory has always been that if whether I had 500,000 live listeners or I had one live listener, if it touches or helps one person, then it's absolutely been worth it. That's, we cannot help the world. We can't help everybody. But again, when the message meets the right people, it can do amazing things. So that made me feel very good that this topic and this show tonight, was able to help you. Rosa said, what an awesome show, ladies. Blessings to all. So again, sounds like some people definitely got some help from this show. So I appreciate you joining me tonight. I know we had a lot of issues, getting the show up and everything, but I'm so glad that we finally connected and got this out there. So everybody, make sure to go to her website. I will also put it out there again, but you can go to the promo at the very bottom. Her website is there. Again, the links to buy her book are there as well. You can get in every country around the world. I was able to at least be able to read some of the book. Great writing, and I'll tell you, it's going to help a lot of people. So thank you for doing that. And again, thank you for joining. And, I'd love to have you back on again, maybe and do a question and answer, session, maybe bring some parents or some kids that, were able to get your book and things like that. Maybe we can.
That sounds great. I'd love to help. No, thanks for having me on the show, Christina. It's been lovely. It's been so nice to talk. It's always a pleasure for me to talk to like-minded people. We hid away for a long time and we didn't tell other people locally about this. So it's been a joy just to talk to people about it and feel comfortable discussing it. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'll tell you, outpour of concern and just love and support that I get from all of you listeners all the time. Now with the change, I'm sure that it's going to take some time to build everything back up again. So if you can just help by sharing the website and the show information each week to your friends and your groups, that will help immensely. Make sure to go to the YouTube page and like and subscribe and share the link with all of your friends. And again, Wednesday, I will be back for Top Secret News. We'll be doing it on this platform again. And by next Monday, we will have the new setup there where you'll be able to watch it through the website itself. You'll be able to call in on your cell phone, or you can call in through Skype. Again, so many things coming up. So stay tuned to the website. That is going to be where all the information is going to drop first. So you may catch it here and there on social media, but I am going to try to kind of move over and put everything on the website. So it's kind of, you can find everything in one spot. Thank you again for joining us. I will be back next week. And I have Chad Zumwalt on. Many of you might know he is a paranormal investigator. Has been in the field for a very long time, but he's very, very controversial. And that's because he uses a lot of techniques of provoking, things like that, in his investigations. Again, been highly controversial. But everybody has their own way of doing things and why they do things the way they do. So as everybody knows, I give a platform for people to tell their stories. So before I judge, because I am the first person to always say, do not provoke, do not provoke. It's all about respect. So we're going to open the floor up to his story and why he does. He'll be taking some questions as well. So we'll see how that goes. Make sure to join so that you can give us your feedback on how you feel about all this as well. So we'll see you next week, and I will see everybody on Wednesday. Good night, everybody, and have a great week. Love you.